Hi there, how's it going? Marcelo here again. In this lesson, you'll learn a very important function which will be with you all the time during your career as a WordPress theme developer, the getTemplatePart function. One of the goals of this function is to help us better structure our theme, making the files easier to read and understand. Let's get right to the point. Let's open our index.php file here. Well, anyone who has at least a basic knowledge of PHP knows that we can use a command called required in order to include a file within another file. In WordPress, we got something like this PHP require, the getTemplatePart function. It works much like the PHP require, including parts of a template file inside another template file. To exemplify how this function works, I'm gonna cut out the article tag, which is being repeated in our loop, and paste its contents into another file. Let's create a folder inside the theme called template-parts. Inside it, let's create a file called content.php. And here inside this one, we're gonna paste the content we just cut out. Let's go back to our index.php. At this point, if I type something here where the tag was located, this content will repeat according to the number of times the loop will run. For example, let's type in here, inside a paragraph, content. You can see that this paragraph has been repeated here a few times. Each repetition corresponds to a post found in the database, brought to us by the loop, of course. To recover the content that is now in the new content.php file, let's use the getTemplatePart function. This is a very useful function. You will use it many times when developing a theme. I can remove all this here, including the PHP tags. And let's call the function here at this point where we had the paragraph. Well, how does it work? This function has two parameters, the first of which is always required. The WordPress codex has a somewhat complicated explanation for this function, but I'll try to simplify it here. So the first parameter we pass is the name of the file we want to call, without the PHP extension. In our case, the name would be template-parts/content. Since our content.php file is inside the template-parts folder. Let's suppose it wasn't inside any folder. It was here in the root of the theme. In this case, we would just have the word content, okay? The second parameter is optional. We'll use it soon to call another file. Let's save this here. And now let's look at the theme. Look at that. Now the content of our theme is again complete. But then you could ask me, but what is it for? I didn't see any difference. Apparently, there hasn't been any change, but by doing what we've done here, we'll have a cleaner and easier code to the other developers, which is recommended in any WordPress theme. We replaced several lines with HTML content and moved them to another location, making the code shorter, easier to read, and more organized. We can do the same thing for other files, for example, archive.php. Let's cut out this code that is being repeated in the loop and put it in another file. Let's call this file content-archive.php. And now let's call the file with getTemplateParts. But instead of passing it like this, I can use the function's second parameter, The second parameter can be used whenever we want to call a specialized part of this template. Kind of confusing, isn't it? Yes, I have to confess, this is a somewhat complicated concept to explain, but in practice it is very easy to understand. We just type in the word archive in the second parameter. So WordPress will understand that we want to call a file named content-archive.php. For this to work, the full name of the file has to be written with the use of this hyphen, okay? In a deeper explanation, what happens here is that WordPress will always include a file that has the same name as this second parameter. If it cannot find this file, it will automatically try to find the file that has the same name as the first parameter. So in our example, if there is a file called content-archive.php, it will call this file. If it doesn't exist, it will call the file named content.php. This may seem useless to you at the moment, but I guarantee that there are other cases where this can help a lot. For example, when you need to decide dynamically which file will show the contents of the loop. A good example of real-world usage is when your theme has support for different post formats, which is not the case with this theme here. In any case, it's worth your while to learn this because you use it a lot. Let's continue and do the same thing with another file that has a loop, for example, the page.php. Here, although the content inside the loop is small, we can do the same thing. In the future, we may want to increase this area within the loop, so the less code we got here in the way, the better. And here we pass the second parameter, page. We can do the same thing with search.php. I'll create a specific template file called content-search.php. And now, with the file created, I'm gonna type the word search here in the second parameter. Let's do the same thing for the single.php file. What we don't have yet are the headers with the documentation for each file. Let's go ahead and create them. Okay, all set now. Two interesting points before finishing the lesson. First, optionally, you may also want to do the same thing for the content that is inside the template home.php. You can put the contents of all sections inside separate files, which will leave the code very clean and tidy. By the way, you can do this with any and all parts of the theme that you find necessary. And the second tip, of course, these template parts can be reusable. For example, the content.php file could be called elsewhere in the theme. Let's assume that the contents within the loop of the index.php and archive.php files were identical. So you could call a single file within the loop of the two files, okay? Alright, so that's it guys. I hope you enjoyed this content and I look forward to our next lesson. Bye!